And now it's time for the Daily Breakdown with Mr. Keelan.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Breakdown, Mr. Keelan, sixth graders. Hope you're having a fabulous Wednesday and getting a lot of work done. Getting used to our whole new system that we got going on here across the grades. Sure you're doing fabulous. And if you're having any problems, make sure you're reaching out to me or any of your other teachers to help get you squared away. We've been talking a lot about Roman geography the past couple days, and we're going to continue that because the third article in your packet dealt with the Tiber River. Ooh, famous Tiber River, which is seen behind me. Wow, how'd I get to Rome? I'm not even allowed to travel right now. It's magic. It's green screen. It's magic. Anywho, let's talk about the objectives for this lesson. First, we want to make sure we have a good handle on the impact that the major waterways around Rome, namely Tiber River and the Mediterranean Sea, had on shaping their culture, their life, and giving them the foundation to become not only a successful civilization, but to build arguably one of the world's strongest empires in history, and definitely most influential empires in history, or our story, as I like to say. So let's talk about that impact of the Tiber River. Just kind of going off of some of the ideas in the article, one of the things that makes Rome a unique river society is that it doesn't necessarily follow the rules as the Mesopotamians, the Egyptians, the Chinese, and the Indians that we were learning about in our river society unit. All of them developed around a delta. The Nile Delta, the delta where the Tigris and Euphrates meet, so on and so forth. The Yellow River has an enormous delta, and that led for a big allowance of silt and navigating and working with the flood, so on and so forth. Yes, the Romans are really dependent on their river, but they're not as dependent on that flood cycle shaping their life. They're a bit away from the mouth, about 15 miles, using our standard measurement, about 15 miles away from where the Tiber meets the sea. And where it does, it isn't a huge, giant delta. This location, inland a bit, actually works out well for the Romans. You'd figure you want to be closer to the mouth. The closer to the mouth you are, the more silt you have, but not in the case of the Romans, because their city is, while it's going to have some farming early on, isn't going to be entirely agriculturally based. It does give them great protection, though. If you want to invade and attack the Romans, like the Carthaginians are going to try to do a few times in the Punic Wars, the fact that you had to travel across 15 miles of Roman soil that they could heavily defend after you got there after crossing the sea gives them a lot of protection. So that distance is a big bonus for them, even though they're not on a delta. Another great thing about that distance is, 15 miles is a good long way for an army to have to march across the Italian peninsula to get to Rome. It's a short distance if you're on a boat leaving Rome to have access to the Mediterranean Sea. Also, coupled the fact that Rome is like right smack in the middle of that Italian peninsula, makes it an ideal place for trade. And we're going to see that Rome is going to not only become a center of an empire, center of government, it's going to be a major financial center, a center of trade for more than 1,000 years. And its ideal location is what allows that to happen. Having easy access to a river, that has easy access to the sea that connects the entire Mediterranean world from the western coastline of Spain all the way to northern Africa and Egypt, up along the western extent of the Fertile Crescent into the Grecian and Asian civilizations in Asia Minor, which is part of the Persian Empire at this point. All those things enable the Romans to have a lot of sway, a lot of power, and a lot of trading power. With a lot of trade and easy trade, we're going to see a lot of cultural interaction. We already talked about the significant influence that the Greeks had on the Romans. one of the reasons for that is because they were able to trade with them so easily, even though they were on two separate peninsulas, two separate areas, and had a sea between them. Yet, that location allowed them to have great interaction. We're going to see a lot of innovations from places like within the Fertile Crescent, Greece, Egypt. They're going to make their way and become part of Roman society, but the Romans are also going to spread many of those ideas because they have shared trading networks. We're going to see that there are hundreds of years of systematic trade also be the routes that they'll use eventually to conquer all their trading partners. Eventually, the people that they peacefully trade with come under the empire of Rome and under the government and control of Rome. And their effective use of the seas is going to allow them to spread that empire world round, Mediterranean world round. And by then conquering their trading partners, conquering the Egyptians, for example, and getting control of the massive amount of food that comes from the yearly flooding and harvesting from Egypt, is going to allow them to feed and supply an enormous empire. And we're going to see because of this, the Romans themselves are going to be far and far less self-reliant on resources and are going to become more and more reliant on the resources coming from outside of the places of Rome, or the places that they conquered, like Egypt, Mediterranean, and Greece. So that wraps up this lesson. Question for you for lesson 3 is: how did Rome's location with its waterways allow it to have easy access for trade? Should we have a quick answer for that one? Also, if you want to do some separate research, see if you can find me some information on Roman ships and that they use for trade. I bet you can find some great stuff. Well, that's all for this. All my Ultraismos, I forgot to mention. I'm representing your house. Sharing means caring, right, Ultraismos? Well, I look forward to seeing what you share and your answers. Have a great one.